The crystal shattered into 1,000 pieces across the marble floor. Hana froze, her pale blue hands trembling as she stared at the remains of what had been a priceless Antarian sculpture. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her chest. This was it. This was the end. She had been working in the luxury orbital station for 6 months now, cleaning the homes of the wealthy and powerful who lived among the stars. Every day was the same routine of scrubbing, polishing, and trying to be invisible. Her people, the Veltharians, had learned that being invisible was the only way to survive in the Galactic Coalition. Ever since their world had been conquered 3 years ago, they had become nothing more than servants and laborers for the rest of the galaxy. Taeyang Park stood in the doorway of his penthouse apartment, watching the scene unfold. He had just returned from a business meeting and found his maid frozen in terror, surrounded by glittering fragments of broken crystal. He noticed how her shoulders shook, how she seemed to be holding her breath, waiting for the punishment that would surely come. Other residents of the station would have her fired immediately. Some would have her arrested and sent to the labor camps on the outer colonies. The Antarian crystal she had broken was worth more than she could earn in 10 years. Everyone knew that Veltharians were clumsy, stupid, only good for the simplest tasks. That was what people said, at least. Tay walked slowly across the room, his footsteps quiet on the expensive floor. Hana flinched as he approached, her eyes squeezed shut. She waited for the shouting, the anger, the call to security that would drag her away. "Are you hurt?" Tay asked softly. Hana's eyes snapped open. She stared at him in confusion. Those were not the words she had expected to hear. "What?" she whispered. "Your hands," Tay said, pointing. "You're bleeding. Did you cut yourself on the crystal?" Hana looked down and saw small drops of purple blood on her fingers. She had not even noticed the pain. I'm so sorry, sir. I will pay for it. I will work for free until—" "It's just a sculpture," Tay interrupted. He walked to a cabinet and pulled out a medical kit. "Things can be replaced. People cannot. Sit down and let me see those cuts." For a moment, Hana could not move. In all her time since the conquest, no one had spoken to her like this. No one had treated her like a person who mattered. The other aliens on the station barely looked at her. Even some humans, the newest members of the Coalition, had started treating Veltharians with the same contempt everyone else did. She sat down carefully on the edge of a chair, feeling wrong for even touching the furniture. Tay knelt beside her and gently took her hand, examining the cuts. They were shallow, nothing serious, but he cleaned them carefully and applied synthetic skin patches. "What's your name?" he asked as he worked. "Hana, sir. It is the human name I chose. My real name is difficult for most species to pronounce. Hana is beautiful. I'm Tay, just Tay, not sir. I cannot call you by just your name, sir. It would not be proper." Tay smiled slightly. "Then call me Mr. Park if it makes you more comfortable. But you don't need to be afraid here." After he finished treating her hands, Tay stood and looked at the broken sculpture. "I never really liked this piece anyway. A business associate gave it to me. I kept it out of politeness, not because I enjoyed looking at it. But it was so valuable," Hana said quietly. "Value is strange," Tay replied. "That crystal was expensive, yes. But what makes something truly valuable? The price tag or the meaning it holds?" He looked at her thoughtfully. "You seem educated. Your Korean is perfect, better than mine, actually. Where did you learn it?" Hana hesitated. Talking about her past was painful. "Before the invasion, I was a teacher on my world. I taught languages and literature. I studied Earth cultures because I found them fascinating. Korean, Japanese, Spanish, French. I learned 17 languages in total." Tay's eyebrows rose. 17? That's remarkable. "It does not matter now," Hana said, standing up. "I should clean this mess and leave you in peace. I am very sorry for—" "Stop apologizing," Tay said gently but firmly. "Accidents happen. I want to ask you something. How would you like a different job?" Hana's breath caught. "Are you firing me?" "No, I'm offering you a position as my personal assistant. I need someone who understands multiple languages and cultures. Someone smart enough to help me navigate the complicated politics of the Coalition. I think you might be exactly who I need." "But I am Veltharian," Hana said, as if he might have somehow missed this obvious fact. "No one trusts us. No one would respect a Veltharian assistant." "Then they would be fools," Tay said simply. "I built my fortune by seeing value where others saw nothing. Quantum computing was considered impossible until it wasn't. Interstellar logistics was too complex until someone made it simple. I don't care what species you are, Hana. I care about what you can do. Hana felt something unfamiliar rising in her chest. Hope. It was dangerous to hope. Hope led to disappointment, and disappointment led to pain. But looking into Tay's eyes, she saw something she had not seen in years. She saw someone who looked at her and saw a person, not a servant, not a conquered alien, but a person with worth. I would be honored, she said quietly. But you should know that people will talk. They will say I manipulated you or that you are naive for trusting me. Let them talk, Tay said with a slight smile. I stopped caring about gossip a long time ago. Besides, I have a feeling you're going to prove them all wrong. As Hana left his apartment that evening, her mind was spinning. She carried a datapad with information to study. Materials about Tay's business empire and the current political situation in the coalition. For the first time since her world fell, she felt like herself again. Not a maid, not a victim, but a teacher, a thinker, someone with something to offer. She did not know it yet. But this single act of kindness from a human billionaire would eventually change the entire galaxy. Sometimes the biggest revolutions start with the smallest gestures. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to see another person's true worth. And sometimes, the most powerful thing in the universe is someone who simply refuses to accept that things have to stay the way they are. 3 months had passed since Hana became Tay's personal assistant, and the station was buzzing with gossip. A human billionaire working closely with a Veltharian? It was scandalous. It was improper. It was, according to most people, proof that humans still did not understand how civilized society worked. Do-won Choi made sure everyone heard his opinion on the matter. He was Tay's biggest business rival, another Korean-American who had made his fortune in interstellar shipping. Unlike Tay, Do-won had fully embraced coalition culture, even adopting some of their prejudices to fit in with the alien elite. It's embarrassing, Do-won said loudly at a gathering of human business leaders. Taeyang Park makes us all look like fools. Hiring a Veltharian as an assistant? What's next, appointing one to his board of directors? The others laughed, but not everyone found it funny. Yejin Nam, Tay's younger sister and the CFO of his company, sat quietly in the corner, watching Do-won with cold eyes. She had been suspicious of Hana at first, worried that her brother was being taken advantage of. But after working with Hana for several weeks, Heejin had changed her mind completely. Hana was brilliant. She could analyze market reports in 6 languages simultaneously, spot patterns that others missed, and navigate the complex web of coalition politics with ease. She had a gift for understanding people, for seeing beneath the surface to what they really wanted. It was a skill that came from years of survival, of learning to read the moods of those who held power over her. My brother knows what he's doing, Hyejin said coolly, standing up. Perhaps if you spent less time gossiping and more time improving your own business, you wouldn't be losing contracts to us, Do-won. The room fell silent. Do-won's face turned red, but before he could respond, Hyejin walked out. Back at the office, Tae and Hana were working late, reviewing data for an upcoming negotiation with a coalition trade council. Hana had been quiet all evening, more withdrawn than usual. Tae noticed but said nothing, giving her space to speak when she was ready. Finally, Hana set down her tablet and looked at him. Mr. Park, I need to tell you something. Something I overheard while I was still working as a maid. What is it? There is a plan, Hana said carefully. Several of the major coalition species are working together. They want to sabotage Earth's trading routes. I heard Councillor Vexthar discussing it with others in a private meeting. They think humans are becoming too powerful, too wealthy. They want to force Earth into a weaker position. Tae leaned back in his chair, processing this information. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I was a maid then, Hana said simply. Who would believe a Veltharian servant? I thought if I told anyone, I would just be accused of lying or trying to cause trouble. But now as your assistant, I thought you should know. Do you have any proof? I have recordings, Hana said quietly. I started secretly recording conversations I overheard. I know it was wrong, but I thought someday the information might be useful. Maybe it could help my people somehow. She handed him a small data chip. Tae inserted it into his computer and listened. The voices were clear, speaking in a language that Hana helpfully translated in real time. The conspiracy was even bigger than she had described. It involved manipulating shipping regulations, creating artificial shortages, and spreading economic propaganda to turn other species against human businesses. When the recording ended, Tay sat in silence for a long moment. Then he called Hyejin. His sister arrived within minutes, still dressed from the business gathering. Tay played the recordings for her. As she listened, her expression grew darker. "This is serious," Hyejin said. "If we don't act, this could bankrupt dozens of Earth companies. But if we go public with this, they'll attack the source. They'll say Hana fabricated it." "I know," Hana said quietly. "I am sorry. Maybe I should not have said anything." "No," Tay said firmly. "You did exactly the right thing. Hyejin, can we verify this information independently?" "I can try," Hyejin said, looking at Hana with new respect. "The data patterns are here. If this is real, there should be other signs, other evidence we can find through official channels." For the next 2 weeks, Hyejin worked around the clock, using her financial expertise to track money flows, shipping patterns, and communication networks. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. The conspiracy was real. Tay called a meeting with his top advisors. When he presented the evidence and explained that it came from Hana, most of them were skeptical. "We can't trust this," one advisor said. "She's Veltharian. Her people have every reason to want to cause chaos in the coalition." "Look at the data, not where it came from," Hyejin snapped. "Everything checks out. The evidence is solid. But going public with this will make us enemies," another advisor warned. "The coalition species involved are powerful. They could destroy us." Tay looked around the table. Then his eyes settled on Hana, who sat quietly in the corner trying to make herself small. She had risked everything to bring him this information, knowing she would be doubted, knowing she might be blamed. "We're going public," Tay said. "I'm presenting this to the Galactic Trade Council next week." "Tay, think about what you're doing," an advisor pleaded. "You'll be putting a target on your back." "On all our backs." "I know," Tay said calmly. "But it's the right thing to do. If we stay silent, we're letting them win. We're accepting that the strong can prey on the weak with no consequences. I'm not built that way." After the meeting ended and everyone else had left, Hana approached Ty's desk. "Mr. Park, I need to say something." "What is it?" "You should present this information as if you discovered it yourself. Leave me out of it entirely. If people know it came from me, they will use that to discredit everything." Tay shook his head. "No, you deserve credit for this. You're the one who had the courage to speak up." "I don't need credit," Hana said. "I need you to succeed. Your success is more important than my recognition." "That's exactly the kind of thinking that keeps people like Vexthar in power," Tay said gently. "The idea that some people matter and others don't. That some deserve credit and others should stay invisible. I won't do that to you, Hana. We're in this together." Hana felt tears forming in her eyes. On her world, before the conquest, people had valued each other. They had built a society based on mutual respect and cooperation. She had forgotten what that felt like. Working with Tay was bringing back memories she had tried to bury, reminding her of what she had lost. "Thank you," she whispered. The next week, Tay stood before the Galactic Trade Council and presented his evidence. The room erupted in chaos. Some counselors denied everything. Others demanded to know where he got his information. Counselor Vexithar sat stone-faced, his tentacles curled tight in anger. When asked about his sources, Tay looked directly at Vexithar and said, "My assistant Hana brought this to my attention. She overheard your planning sessions when she worked as a maid. You never noticed her because you never saw her as a person worth noticing. That was your mistake." The chamber fell silent. Then the accusations began. The shouting. The threats. But the evidence was undeniable and the scandal had begun. There was no turning back now. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Within days of Ty's presentation to the Trade Council, the coalition media turned against him. Headlines screamed about the reckless human who had disrupted galactic harmony. Commentators questioned his judgment, his motives, and his sanity. But worse than the alien criticism was the betrayal from his own kind. Dawan Choi appeared on every major human news network, speaking with grave concern about Taeyang Park's actions. "He's jeopardized Earth's standing in the coalition," Dawan said, his face arranged in an expression of worried responsibility. "Yes, there may have been some irregular trading practices, but airing this publicly was reckless. He's made enemies of powerful species over the word of a Veltharian maid. It's embarrassing for all of us." Other human business leaders joined the chorus. They issued a joint statement condemning Tai's lack of diplomatic judgment and calling for him to step down from several industry associations. The message was clear: Tai had crossed a line, and they were distancing themselves to protect their own interests. Ji-Wan Lee, one of the few human journalists who had helped Tai prepare his evidence, tried to push back against the narrative. Her articles detailed the evidence, showed the patterns, explained why this mattered, but she was drowned out by louder voices with bigger platforms. Even Ambassador Kyung Park, Tai's distant cousin and Earth's representative to the coalition, called him privately to express concerns. "You've put me in an impossible position," Ambassador Park said over the video call. "I'm trying to build relationships here, and you've essentially accused half the council of conspiracy. Do you know how hard that makes my job?" "The truth is the truth, cousin," Tai replied calmly. "What they were planning would have hurt millions of people, human and alien alike. Should I have stayed quiet? You should have come to me first. We could have handled this diplomatically behind closed doors." "And nothing would have changed," Tai said. "The powerful would have made a deal with the powerful, and everyone else would have continued to suffer. That's not the world I want to live in." Ambassador Park sighed heavily. "You always were stubborn, just like your father." At the office, the atmosphere was tense. 3 of Tai's senior advisors had resigned, unwilling to be associated with what they called a sinking ship. Several major clients had canceled contracts, citing political complications. The company's stock price had dropped 15%. Hyejin walked into Tai's office without knocking, her face tight with stress. "We need to talk about the numbers. We're losing money faster than I projected. If this continues for another month..." She stopped when she saw Hana standing by the window, her shoulders shaking. The Veltharian woman was crying silently, trying to hide it. "This is my fault," Hana said, her voice breaking. "All of this is because of me. I should have stayed quiet. I should have known better." Tai stood up and walked over to her. "Hana, look at me." She turned, her eyes red with tears. "I am ruining your life, Mr. Park. Everything you built is falling apart because you trusted me. I cannot let this continue." "What are you saying?" Hana took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I will make a public statement. I will say that I fabricated the evidence, that I manipulated you, that I acted alone. I will confess to everything. It will save your reputation. They can punish me however they want, but you will be free of this." "Absolutely not," Tai said firmly. "Please," Hana begged, "let me fix this. I cannot watch you lose everything because you tried to help me. I cannot live with that guilt. And I cannot live with betraying someone who stood by me when no one else would." Tai replied. He placed his hands on her shoulders gently. "Hana, do you know why I really hired you? Not just because you're smart, though you are. Not just because you speak 17 languages, though that's impressive. I hired you because when I met you, I saw someone who refused to give up. Someone who kept learning, kept hoping, kept fighting to be more than what the galaxy told her she was. That's the kind of person I want on my team." "But you are losing everything," Hana whispered. "I'm losing business contracts and social standing," Tai corrected. "Those are not everything. You know what I would lose if I let you take the blame? My integrity, my self-respect, the ability to look at myself in the mirror. Those are the things that actually matter." Hyejin, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "He's right, Hana, and for what it's worth, I was wrong about you. I thought my brother was being naive when he hired you. I thought you might be using him. But you're the most honest person I've met in this entire corrupt station. If Tai goes down, I'm going down with him. We're family, all of us." Hana wiped her eyes, overwhelmed by their loyalty. She had forgotten what it felt like to have people stand beside her, not above her or below her, but beside her as equals. That night, Tai could not sleep. He stood in his apartment looking out at the stars, thinking about his next move. The evidence had been presented, but the council had buried it in committee reviews and procedural delays. Vexthar and his allies were using their influence to make the scandal disappear. Meanwhile, the attacks on Tai continued. Someone leaked his private financial records trying to find dirt. They found nothing illegal, but the invasion of privacy sent a message: back down or face worse. The next morning, Tai called an emergency meeting with his remaining team. Hyejin, Hana, Ji-Wan Lee, and a few other loyal employees gathered in the conference room. "I've made a decision," Tai announced. "We're not backing down. In fact, we're going bigger." "Bigger how?" Hyejin asked cautiously. I'm establishing a foundation, the Dignity Foundation. I'm putting 40% of my personal wealth into it. About 2 trillion credits. The room went completely silent. Even Hyejin looked shocked. 2 trillion? She finally managed. Tay, that's insane. That's most of your liquid assets. I know exactly what it is, Tay said calmly. The foundation will provide education, job training, and economic development for displaced and oppressed species throughout the coalition. Starting with the Viltharians. They will never allow it, Hana said quietly. The council will block you at every turn. Let them try, Tay said. I'm not asking for their permission. I'm building a parallel system. Schools that teach real skills, business incubators that help people start their own companies, trade networks that bypass the coalition's corrupt systems. I'm creating opportunity where they've created barriers. Jiwan Lee leaned forward, her journalist instincts sensing a bigger story. And who's going to run this foundation? Tay looked at Hana. I want you to be the director of education. You're a teacher, Hana. That's who you really are. It's time the galaxy saw that too. Hana stared at him speechless. Director of education, her? A Veltharian who had been scrubbing floors just 6 months ago? I cannot, she said. I am not qualified. I have no credentials that the coalition recognizes. You're the most qualified person I know, Tay interrupted. You understand what it means to be powerless. You know what people need to rise above their circumstances. And most importantly, you give a damn. That's more qualification than any degree could provide. This is either brilliant or completely crazy, Hyejin muttered. Then she smiled slightly. Probably both. I'm in. Me too, Jiwan said. This is the story I've been waiting to write my entire career. One by one, everyone in the room committed. They knew the risks. They knew the powerful forces that would oppose them. But sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do. And sometimes you have to be willing to risk everything to change anything. Tay looked around at his team, this small group of people willing to challenge an entire galactic order. Then let's get to work. We have a foundation to build and a galaxy to change. Outside, the station continued its daily rhythm, unaware that within these walls, a revolution was beginning. Not a revolution of weapons or violence, but something far more dangerous to those in power. A revolution of dignity, education, and opportunity for all. The announcement of the Dignity Foundation sent shockwaves through the coalition that made the initial scandal look like a ripple in a pond. 2 trillion credits, 40% of one of the wealthiest humans' personal fortune, dedicated to uplifting the species that the coalition had pushed to the margins. The reaction was immediate and divided. The coalition elite responded with fury barely disguised as concern. Councillor Vexthar called an emergency session to discuss what he termed dangerous outside interference in coalition social structures. But something unexpected happened. The marginalized species, the ones who cleaned the floors and hauled the cargo and maintained the systems that kept the coalition running, began to pay attention. Whispers spread through servant quarters and worker dormitories. A human was offering a way out, a chance at something better. Minho Kang was a 24-year-old programmer who had been working on educational software for human schools. When he heard about the foundation, he walked into Tay's office without an appointment and refused to leave until someone listened to his pitch. I can build something revolutionary, Minho said, his words tumbling out in excitement. A translation and education AI that adapts to each student's learning style, that teaches in their native language, but helps them master others. It can scale to millions of users simultaneously. Hana, who was now spending 16-hour days setting up the Foundation's education programs, looked at the young man's designs. Her eyes widened. This is exactly what we need. Mr. Park, with this technology, we could teach thousands of students with just a handful of teachers. You're hired, Tay said simply. Start immediately. Minho became the Foundation's first official employee. Within weeks, his AI prototype was running, and within months it would become the backbone of the entire educational system. Then came Suji Yoon. She had worked as a mid-level bureaucrat in the Coalition's trade division for 15 years. She knew every loophole, every regulation, every way the system could be manipulated. When she heard about the Foundation, she made a choice that would end her comfortable career. She leaked thousands of internal documents to Tay, showing exactly how the Coalition's legal system was designed to keep certain species poor and powerless. Then she resigned and offered to help the Foundation navigate those same laws. Why are you doing this? Hyejin asked her during the interview. You had job security, a pension, respect in your community. Suji smiled sadly. I had comfort built on the suffering of others. I spent 15 years processing applications from species begging for basic rights, and I denied most of them because the regulations told me to. I'm tired of being part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. With Suji's knowledge, the Foundation was able to operate in legal gray areas, finding ways to provide services without technically breaking coalition law. It was a careful dance, but they were getting good at it. The first Foundation school opened on a small orbital platform near the Veltharian refugee settlements. 200 students enrolled in the first week. Within a month, there were waiting lists of thousands. The education was free, the materials were provided, and the AI system Minho built adapted to each student's needs. But the coalition establishment was not going to accept this quietly. Councillor Vexthar pushed through a proposal to ban unauthorized educational institutions that did not follow coalition curriculum standards. The standards, of course, were designed to be impossible for anyone without massive resources to meet. The vote was scheduled for the end of the month. If it passed, the Foundation would be forced to close before it really began. The night before the vote, Tae received an unexpected message. Ambassador Kyung Park wanted to meet in person. They sat in a quiet restaurant on the station, the kind of place where the powerful Maid deals away from cameras. I owe you an apology, the ambassador said without preamble. When you first went public with the conspiracy, I thought you were being reckless. I was wrong. What changed your mind? Tae asked. I've been watching what you've built. The Foundation is doing more real good in 3 months than the Coalition has done in decades. And I've been getting messages, Tae. Hundreds of them, from species all over the galaxy, asking Earth to support what you're doing. They see the Foundation as hope. But tomorrow's vote? Let me worry about tomorrow's vote, Ambassador Park said with a slight smile. I've spent years building relationships in the Council. It's time I use them for something that actually matters. I cannot promise victory, but I can promise a fight. The next day, the Council chamber was packed. Species from across the galaxy had sent representatives to observe. The debate was fierce. Vexthar spoke passionately about maintaining standards and tradition. Others echoed his concerns about humans interfering with coalition culture. Then an elderly delegate from a species called the Torathi stood to speak. The Torathi were one of the minor species with little power or influence. No one expected his words to matter. I want to tell you about my granddaughter, he said, his voice shaking slightly. She is 8 years old. For the past year, she has been attending the Foundation school. Before that, she could barely read. Our species is not considered intelligent enough for advanced education by coalition standards. We are laborers, nothing more. He paused, looking around the chamber. Last week, my granddaughter wrote me a letter, in 3 languages. She told me about the history of our people, facts I never knew. She explained how engines work, how the stars burn, why the seasons change on our homeworld. She is 8 years old and she is brilliant. The delegate's voice grew stronger. When she was still working as a maid on this very station, Hana, who is now the Foundation's Director of Education, secretly taught my granddaughter to read using scraps of paper and stolen moments. She risked her own safety to give a child hope. That is who these people are. That is what they are trying to do. He looked directly at Vexthar. You want to shut down the Foundation because it threatens your power. Because if species like mine can be educated, can build our own businesses, can think for ourselves, then you can no longer control us. My granddaughter is proof that your entire system is built on a lie. We are not inferior. We have just been denied opportunity. The chamber erupted. Some delegates shouted in agreement. Others protested. But something had shifted. The Torathi delegate had said what many had been thinking, but were too afraid to voice. When the vote was finally called, the proposal to ban the Foundation failed by a narrow margin. It was not a complete victory, but it was enough. The Foundation could continue its work. After the vote, Hana found Tai standing alone on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. She stood beside him quietly. The Torathi delegate's granddaughter. Tai said softly, You taught her when you were still a maid? I taught many children, Hana admitted. In secret during my breaks. It seemed like such a small thing at the time. I never thought it would matter. Every act of kindness matters, Tai said. Every moment you chose to help someone instead of protecting yourself. Every risk you took to make the galaxy a little better. It all led to this moment. We still have so far to go, Hana said. One school, one vote. The system is still broken. But it's less broken than it was yesterday, Tay replied. And tomorrow we'll break it a little more. That's how you change the world, Hana. Not all at once, but piece by piece, person by person, until one day you look back and realize everything is different. Below them, in the foundation school, 200 students were finishing their evening classes. In a few months, there would be 10 schools. In a year, there would be 50. The movement was growing, and nothing the council did could stop it, because it turned out that the most powerful force in the galaxy was not money or weapons or political influence. It was hope. And once you gave people hope, they became unstoppable. 5 years had passed since the day Hana broke that crystal sculpture. 5 years since a simple act of kindness changed the course of galactic history. The orbital station looked the same from the outside, but everything about the coalition had fundamentally transformed. The Dignity Foundation now operated 400 schools across 70 systems. Over 2 million students had graduated from its programs. Former servants were now engineers, teachers, doctors, and business owners. The economic landscape had shifted so dramatically that the old power structures were crumbling. Tai stood backstage at the Foundation's 5th anniversary celebration, adjusting his collar. He was not a man who enjoyed public speaking, but today was important. The main hall was filled with thousands of beings from hundreds of species. Leaders, students, teachers, and families had traveled from across the galaxy to be here. Beside him, Hana checked her speech notes for the 10th time. She looked different than she had 5 years ago. More confident, more comfortable in her own skin. She wore elegant robes that combined Veltharian traditional designs with human formal wear. On her finger was a simple wedding band. Their marriage 2 years ago had been a quiet ceremony, attended only by close friends and family. But somehow the news had spread across the galaxy. A human billionaire marrying a former Veltharian maid. It should not have been such a revolutionary statement, but in the coalition it was. It said that love and partnership could cross any boundary, that worth was not determined by species or social class. Nervous? Tay asked, taking her hand. Terrified, Hana admitted with a small smile. I am about to speak to thousands of people. 5 years ago, I could not even speak up in a room with one person without fear. You've given hundreds of speeches now. You're amazing at it. I have you to thank for that, for believing I could be more than what I was. I didn't make you into anything, Tay said gently. I just gave you the space to become who you always were. Hyejin appeared around the corner, moving with her usual brisk efficiency. She had taken over Tay's original business empire and run it with the same principles her brother had championed. Profits were good, but more importantly, the company was known for fair treatment of all species. Other human businesses had started following her example. You're on in 5 minutes, Hyejin said. The place is packed. Every major news network in the galaxy is covering this. No pressure, Tay laughed. Thanks, that helps. Out in the audience, people from all walks of life mixed together in a way that would have been impossible 5 years ago. Dawan Choi sat in the middle section, looking uncomfortable. He had tried to join the Foundation's board of directors last year, hoping to repair his reputation. Hyejin had rejected his application with a polite but firm letter, explaining that they needed people who believed in the mission from the start, not people who jumped on board once it became successful. Councillor Vexthar was not in attendance. He had been voted out of office 3 years ago in a stunning upset. The species that had once been powerless had gained enough economic strength to influence elections. The new council was younger, more diverse, and far more interested in reform than maintaining the old ways. In the front row sat the Tarathi delegate and his granddaughter, now 13 years old and already enrolled in advanced engineering courses. Beside them was Minho Kang, whose educational AI had won several Galactic Innovation Awards. Suji Yoon sat nearby, directing a team of Foundation lawyers who spent their days helping marginalized species navigate the legal system. The lights dimmed, and Tay walked onto the stage. The applause was thunderous. He waited for it to fade, then began speaking. 5 years ago, I made what many people told me was the worst business decision of my life. I hired a Veltharian maid as my personal assistant. I trusted her intelligence over the opinions of experts. I believed her evidence when powerful people said she was lying. I invested most of my fortune into an idea that everyone said would fail. He paused, looking out at the crowd. They were wrong about all of it. Hana was not the worst decision I ever made. She was the best. And the foundation has not failed. It has succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. But not because of me, because of all of you. Tay gestured to the audience. Every teacher who believed a student could learn when everyone else said they were too stupid. Every graduate who started a business and created jobs for others. Every parent who fought to get their child into our schools. Every person who refused to accept that the galaxy had to stay the way it was. You are the ones who changed everything. He spoke for 20 minutes about the Foundation's accomplishments, the challenges ahead, and the vision for the future. When he finished, the applause was even louder than before. Then it was Hana's turn. She walked to the podium, her hands shaking slightly despite her experience. But when she began speaking, her voice was clear and strong. I was asked to speak today about education, she said, about curriculum and outcomes and success metrics. Those things are important, but I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about dignity. The room fell silent, everyone listening intently. When I was a maid, I was invisible. People looked through me, not at me. I cleaned their homes, served their food, and they never once asked my name or where I came from. I had been a teacher on my world, but none of that mattered here. I was just another Veltharian, another conquered species, another servant. Hana's voice grew passionate. But one human saw me differently. When I made a mistake, he did not punish me. He asked if I was hurt. That simple question changed my life, because it told me that I mattered, that my well-being was more important than a broken sculpture, no matter how expensive. She looked at Tay, who stood at the side of the stage. My husband taught me that the measure of a civilization is not its technology or wealth. It is how it treats those with the least power. By that measure, the coalition was failing. It is still failing in many ways, but we are better than we were yesterday, and tomorrow we will be better than today. Hana spoke about specific students, about lives transformed, about communities rebuilt. She shared stories that made people laugh and cry. When she finished, there was not a dry eye in the hall. The celebration continued for hours. Students performed music from their homeworlds. Teachers shared success stories. Business owners talked about their journey from poverty to prosperity. It was a glimpse of what the galaxy could be when everyone was given a real chance to succeed. Late that night, after all the guests had left, Ty and Hana stood alone in the empty hall. The cleaning crew was starting their work, and Hana smiled at the irony. 5 years ago, she would have been part of that crew. What are you thinking? Ty asked. I am thinking about the future, Hana said. We have done so much, but there is still so much more to do. Billions of beings are still trapped in poverty and powerlessness. The Foundation has helped millions, but what about the rest? We'll keep growing, Tay said. Every year we reach more people. Every year the old system gets weaker and the new possibilities get stronger. Do you ever regret it? Hana asked quietly. You gave up so much. Your fortune, your reputation, your comfortable life. Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you had just fired me that day instead of helping me? Tay pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. Not for a single second. Money is replaceable. Reputation is meaningless. But you, what we've built together, the lives we've changed, that's real. That's what matters. He kissed her forehead gently. Besides, I'm not a billionaire anymore. I'm something better. I'm married to the most remarkable woman in the galaxy, and together we're making the universe a little less cruel and a little more fair. I wouldn't trade that for anything. Hana leaned into him, feeling safe and loved in a way she had never thought possible during those dark years after the conquest. She thought about the girl she had been, scrubbing floors and trying to be invisible. She thought about the teacher she had become again, but stronger, more determined, with resources she had never dreamed of. Most of all, she thought about all the other people out there, still invisible, still waiting for someone to see them as they truly were. The Foundation would find them. It would give them the same chance she had been given. Not charity, but opportunity. Not pity, but respect. What you did next left everyone speechless, Hana whispered. You saw Maid and chose to see a person. Such a simple thing. Why was that so hard for everyone else? Because they were taught not to see, Tay replied. The whole system depends on people not seeing each other as equals. Once you start seeing, really seeing, the whole illusion falls apart. That's what scares them. That's why they fought us so hard. And that is why we won, Hana said with a smile. Because truth is stronger than illusion. Always. They stood there in the empty hall, two people from different worlds who had found each other against all odds. Around them the galaxy was changing, slowly, imperfectly, but changing. And it had all started with the smallest of gestures. Seeing someone's worth when everyone else saw nothing. Sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply being kind. Sometimes the greatest power in the universe is treating others with dignity. And sometimes all it takes to change everything is one person willing to look at another person and say, "You matter." That was what Taeyang Park had done.